Bovada Sportsbook has put out its early odds if you feel like wagering on who will win the college football Heisman Trophy this coming season, and Louisville's Teddy Bridgewater is on that list. Bridgewater is listed as 12-1 and is one of 9 quarterbacks with odds of 20-1 or better. I would say Bridgewater certainly ranks high on the list of my guest tonight, Mark Coomes. He wrote a recent article for Insider Louisville calling Teddy Bridgewater the Daryl Griff of the U of L football. Now, Mark, I was really fascinated by that concept. Tell me how you came up with that idea. And it was a really interesting article. So go on to InsiderLouisville.com if you want to check it out. But tell me the thought process behind your article there.
Well, long story short, Chip, Griffith had a special charisma and skill to go with it. And he sort of was a breakthrough player for the program. They've been knocking on the door, been to several Final Fours in the 50s and then, of course, 2 in the 70s when Denny got here. But they needed somebody with just that it factor to put him over the top. Teddy has that it factor. Braun was good, Redmond was good, but they weren't necessarily playmakers. They were scheme guys. Teddy is a guy who can pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Right.
3rd and 13, you're not out of it. He can just figure out a way to beat you. And the other thing is, Chip, Teddy is attracting attention of other people in other schools in other parts of the country in a way that's unusual for a Louisville football player.
Right. Nationally, I don't know if anybody when's the last time a Louisville football player's got this kind of national attention?
I mean, they might have known the name Brian Brom and that sort of thing, but people really liked Teddy Bridgewater, and that's how it was with Daryl. I mean, people loved Daryl Griffith all over the country. It was kind of hard to tell because we didn't have the internet back in 1979, 80, but there was just a special feeling about his being somewhat of a celebrity. And the other thing is, too, Chip, UK fans like Bridgewater.
That's when when your arch rival can say, I hate them, but boy, that's when you're good.
Yeah.
When you can get the other fan base to acknowledge and say, hey, I kind of like that guy.
And they did exactly that in 1980. I was a junior in high school, and there was a rivalry within the rivalry that year because the Kentucky fans just thought Kyle Macy was the deal.
Right.
And the Louisville fans thought Daryl was to me it was a no-brainer.
Right.
I mean, Kyle was a nice player, but Daryl was a great player. And as the season wore on and people were paying more attention, the Cat fans were watching Daryl Griffith. They came around, they're like, man, wow, I don't like y'all's team, but I sure like watching him.
I'm sure he had to be. And I was going to say, I grew up in the 80, I remember the 80 game, but I didn't really get to see the evolution of Griff. Talk to me about him, a kid that grew up in Louisville. Man, I can only imagine. Like you said, there really wasn't the internet, but he was still a national phenom anyway, wasn't he?
He was, and he was a celebrity locally from the time he was maybe 9th or 10th grade. Everybody knew who he was. They won the state championship when he was a junior. He and Bobby Turner did together. And long story short, Griffith came to Louisville with a ton of promise and prospects and a lot of hype. He was coming on the tail end of the Julius Erving, David Thompson.
Right.
So he was like he's the next wave, right? That's kind of how he was built. That's kind of how he played. But after his junior year, I was talking to Billy Reed for that story that I did. Billy said he about gave up on Griff after his junior year. And I think a lot of fans sort of felt that way. Daryl had been erratic. He just hadn't improved much. He was making the same mistakes as before. He wasn't making good decisions. You couldn't count on him to hit an outside shot. But Daryl did what few guys ever do. The summer between his junior and senior year, he spent entirely in the gym. This is a great player who knew he was going to be a first-round pick anyway. Shooting over volleyball standards to get more arc on his shot and dribbling between chairs because his ball handling was one of his weaknesses. And he came back his senior year, and you could see immediately that he was a different player. Way more confident with the ball, so he kept his head up and he was looking around for other people, and his shot was totally different. Before it had been kind of flat and erratic. Now it had that beautiful arc. Nobody would have ever guessed, Chip, after Daryl's junior year at Louisville, that he would go on to be one of the greatest NBA three-point shooters ever.
Wow, it's amazing. And Teddy's I think we probably won't see Teddy as a senior at Louisville. I would imagine this is going to be
he's hurt.
Yeah, this is going to be his last year. We were talking before the show. It's going to be hard for him to match Griff. While we say he's the Daryl of U of L football, he's got a lot. Griff's legacy looms large, but Teddy, there's still a lot out there. I mean, the Heisman Trophy, Louisville could get themselves back in the BCS consideration. How much more can he add to that legacy? And you don't think, can he catch Griff? I mean, I'm assuming.
Well, no, because football's never going to catch basketball at Louisville. And Teddy's never going to be a locally groomed guy. There's that old saying about prophet has no honor in his homeland. Griff was the rare case of a guy who came up and everybody watched him for years and years, and he panned out. So there's a special connection here between him and the community that Teddy will never have.
Less than 24 hours until the best football recruits in the country make their final decisions on National Signing Day. So while we wait to see who'll sign on the dotted line, let's take a look at who's already committed to the Cards and Cats. Let's start with the Cards. First up, defensive tackle Finesse Middleton, the 5'11", 255-pound player from Gadsden, Alabama, has a 3-star ranking on Rivals. Quarterback Brett Nelson is also committed to the Cards. 6'4", 220-pounder from California has a 3-star ranking on Rivals. Both players are already enrolled, and Nelson could compete for the backup quarterback job behind Bridgewater. UK also has 2 players with signed letters of intent. Tight end Stephen Borden is 6'3" and weighs 250 pounds with a 2-star ranking on Rivals. He's also the son of professional wrestler Sting. And defensive end Zadarius Smith has also signed a letter with UK. The 6'5", 252-pound player out of Mississippi has a 4-star ranking on Rivals. That's how I know I'm getting old, man, when Sting's son has a kid old enough to be playing college ball. But let's talk recruiting a little bit just in general. Mark Stoops has come in and made some noise for the Wildcats. They got a big commitment from Ryan Timmons from Franklin County earlier today, ranked ahead of Louisville by a lot of the recruiting services. Talk about what he's been able to do, coming into Lexington like he has.
I've been surprised. I mean, he really hit the ground running and has gotten Kentucky in on some kids that maybe they wouldn't have gotten in on normally. I don't think they would have gotten in with the past staff, frankly.
Right.
And I think for Kentucky fans have to be very encouraged because he was having to do this completely on the fly. Imagine what he'll be able to do next year with a whole year of planning,
right.
And the whole
selling the system,
showing some results, being at Kentucky, just having your letterhead in line and all your, all of your things that he had to kind of do on the fly this year. I think he's done a great job.
Charlie, it's a smaller class. I think they've only got 16 commitments at this point, but he's got a lot of momentum. The question I'll throw at you, Mark, is, Charlie's on top of the world right now.
Yeah.
Mark Stoops is coming in with a lot of momentum. Can both of these guys succeed? Usually in this rivalry, U of L football, when one guy does well, another guy usually is sacrificed. Yeah. Can both guys thrive and survive?
Theoretically, Chip, because you can't rely just on Kentucky talent. So it's not just a matter of one team locking down the local talent. They're all going to have to go out to Florida and the South to get their players. So I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't. I just think it's very difficult in Kentucky's shoes to do it where they are.
All right.